All right, Wednesday morning. It's September 11th. Got a lot of history.
Certainly do.
Yeah. We got a fun guest today.
Yeah, we also do.
We also do. So first, let's just talk about September 11th. Where were you 24 years ago?
Well, I was in college, but to be quite frank, that was in Illinois. I can't imagine, having lived in New York like you did, what that probably must have felt like.
It's going to live on in history of what happened and how the world changed.
When we talk to the employees here, especially on days like today and years prior, just having the New York feel now, I think, you obviously know, like, this is a monumental moment, right? But seeing the impact when it's as close to home as it has been here now in New York has just been, like, really, really humbling. And just to hear the stories of our employees and kind of what they went through has just been, it's just a real experience for me. It's crazy to think 20 years does not feel like 20 years, does it?
No.
Yeah. So.
Life goes quick.
Yeah.
I do want to stay on September 11th, but let's move on to some fun activities. We had our golf outing last week.
We did.
That was a lot of fun. Our first golf outing we've done in 30 years for this company.
130 people.
130 people. It was good.
Uh-huh.
We had a lot of fun. How'd you play?
My group was a -11.
Wow.
I'm sorry. My group was a -5. The winning group was a -11.
Yeah, all right.
My group was a -5. I was not a -5. I was a contributor to providing cigars and alcohol, I think, more than I was to helping our score.
So it was our 70th anniversary golf outing. We had customers from all over. People flew in for it. We had a bunch of associates. We had a bunch of vendors. We had a bunch of sponsors. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of organization getting it to happen, but it was well worth it. And already got a lot of feedback on it. People want to do it again. We make this thing annual.
I think we do it again, to be quite frank. Look, forget the 70th year portion. I know that's obviously special. But I think just, like, you get this time with these customers to learn about them in a way more human fashion, right? And quite frankly, do I think it was good for business? Yeah, I think it was good for business. So, I know that translated into some orders, but more importantly, do I feel like this customer knows me better, and do I feel like I know them better? Absolutely.
Sure.
And so, yeah, for that reason alone, if you could do that once a year and you just strengthen that relationship, because when things go wrong or they go right, it's just nice to know that you're supporting someone that you want to do business with. It was an absolute winner of an event.
Yeah, I agree. I walk away saying, realizing and saying, like, how impactful one-on-one personal relationships and personal events are.
Yeah.
When you get to spend time with someone for 3, 4, 5 hours, the impact, the ability to learn more about them, just to hang out and not just talk business, not just buy and sell or do whatever you do on a regular basis. The impact is tremendous, and now we have a memory. We created memories with these people.
Well, no doubt. And then just to pile on, a donation to Habitat for Humanity, over $25,000, and to support a charitable cause that, like, really is within our industry-wide scope. I felt good.
Yeah.
And I think the customers felt good about it too. And I specifically know the vendors who's helped support our event, thinking that they were helping pay for the event, knowing that money also went towards a larger cause, I think was a really nice touch.
Yeah, and it is a great organization. Transitioning, something else that's big in the time right now is fantasy football.
You're speaking my language.
Yes, many fantasy football teams in our company.
100%.
Many fantasy football teams outside our company.
Also true.
Tell me about your teams.
Well, Mikey, as a diamond Yahoo fantasy football coach,
Diamond.
It's reserved for the top 1% of all fantasy coaches. And Sherwood Associates, if you're listening, I have to kind of thank them too, because winning's only partially my doing. It's also partially them being bad, right? And so I do appreciate what they do. I think acquiescing to the boss sometimes, it's a necessary function. But the team's good. Super high on a lot of these returning players. Yet to be super high on some of these rookies. So I guess that'll be determined. But overall, the overall outlook for the establishment, my fantasy football team, looking pretty high this year.
It's really funny. When I used to have, I think, like 6, 7 teams, and I was managing them like crazy, and I did my best to get out of those teams because it was just way too much time. And I find myself, like 5 years later, having 5 or 6 teams again. Between my own two teams, now my kids who are 9 and 7. They have their own teams doing their own drafts, and they're much better than me. I'm relying on them.
Well, I think it's important to point out that your 5 teams are being run by your 9-year-old son.
Yes, my 9-year-old son Asher. He knows everything. He's texting me all day long about trades he's making in the fantasy football leagues, and I don't even know what to tell him because he knows better than me. But I'm back at the stage I started at. Fantasy football is back. Football is back, and you can feel it in the air.
Well, in the work league, if you are inclined, Travis Kelce reached out to me. He would like to adorn the Mikey's Great Team jersey, or Mikey's Majestic Team. Jersey. So if you want to discuss a trade after the podcast is over, I'm happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, I did lose in week 1, but I'll make some trades.
There you go.
Travis Kelce could be on the. Another interesting thing that happened last night was the presidential debate.
Yep.
Did you watch?
I did.
I watched too.
I did. What were your thoughts?
Any big take? My thoughts. It felt it felt not as impactful as I thought it would be. I felt like there was a little. It seemed like it was a little one-sided at one point, but then it also came back to there's some jabs back and forth that were kind of funny. I think both parties were having some funny faces throughout the debate. It was definitely interesting to watch with no audience there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Look, it's interesting because I think in years prior the debate wasn't as important to the result as it probably is going to be this year. But with the dropping out and the new entrants, and it just feels like it holds more weight this year. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the aftermath is now that it's over.
Do you think one candidate over the other helps our business?
So that's an interesting question.
Or hurts our business?
I definitely think that there's an argument to be made of one over the other versus the economy. But I think in a micro lens, if you're looking at building products, honestly, I think building products probably does okay under either. For me, I'm bullish to get going because I think right now uncertainty is an enemy, not an ally. And so I think that once we can get some consistency and people know the direction we're heading, that's just generally going to be good for our industry. What about you?
I kind of get, I'm going to agree. I get sick. I'm like sick and tired of every conversation you have is like, we'll wait and see what happens in the election. Like everything is predetermined what's going to happen in the election. I can't invest now, or I can't do this. I can't go on vacation now, or I can't buy now. As once the election is set, everything's just all of a sudden going to be determined. Like either business is going to grow or business is going to shrink, and I think that's just like that feels like a big excuse. So I want to get past it for that reason that we can stop saying it.
Same page. I don't think there's any bigger competitor right now than indecision, and so it'll be nice when we kind of move past that and that no longer becomes a narrative.
Yeah. So getting back to our great guest today, we got Matt Bruce from MoistureShield.
We do, yeah. And look, it's going to be an incredible story because Matt he's taken a small company that I think was known mainly in the Northeast for its kind of performance. And he's turned it into a national brand, and to kind of get insights as to what that takes and the journey you go on. And then along the way, acquiring businesses and bringing them together. And then talking about how you build a team that comes from multiple different parts and pieces. I think we're going to have a lot of good conversation today.
Yeah, we work pretty closely with Matt and MoistureShield, and it's a great product, and I'm really looking forward to hear what he has to say and how he grew that business.
Yeah, 100%. And look, Sherwood was a big part of that for us. So the journey is theirs, but we got to share a small piece of that, and so I think that's kind of cool. The really neat thing about Matt Bruce too is that he has a really unique worldview, having owned a lumber yard, having worked at multiple manufacturers in different positions and where they play, being a market leader to a up-and-comer and everywhere in between. It's very rare that you see someone that's been able to see the industry from so many different lenses that I think has really helped build a very unique company.
Yeah, so shipped and delivered. Here's Matt Bruce.
Just to kind of get us started, do you want to give us a brief background and kind of career history and just kind of let our listeners know about kind of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity, guys. Mike, good morning. Hopefully the handicap played you well in the golf outing last week, by the way. But yeah, sure. Pretty easy one for me. As far as career-wise and kind of background, I've literally been in building materials forever. And when I say forever, I literally mean forever. So I really kind of got into the career. I've had 3 jobs really ever. um, owner operator of a 4-generation retail lumberyard in Massachusetts. And really kind of prior to being fully engaged in the business, first thing I ever drove was a forklift. I used to go to the yard on Saturdays and drag bands around and clean up the yard. My dad would give me a couple of bucks until I got out of school. Went there full time. So 96 through I think 2012. And pretty quickly, just because of some health things with my dad, kind of jumped in the seat really quick from a leadership perspective. Had some succession stuff go on there. Made a decision to move out of the business, and I was an owner at that point, but moved into the manufacturing side of the business, which is where I am now. Spent a short stint at not short, 7 or 8 years at Westlake Royal, and then I in 2019 made the move over to Old Castle APG, and kind of moved with the MoistureShield brand that they had acquired a few years earlier, and then fast forward, we've done some acquisitions, and I'm where I'm at today.
Certainly from humble beginnings, no debate about that. And Matt, I guess to get started, you're one of the guys responsible for taking what was a really good product in AERT to kind of a national brand that's MoistureShield. Do you want to talk a little bit about your decking product and kind of what makes it unique, and then maybe help us understand how you took it from kind of a local, regional, strong player that was known for its performance to a kind of a major brand?
Yeah, that's a great question, Todd, and it's been a ride. It's I think when you sit back and kind of look at the past 5 years, it feels like it's been a lot longer than that. But the APG acquired AERT, the legacy brand of MoistureShield, in 2017. They had lost a pretty significant retail position just after acquisition. And really kind of when I got there in 2019, it was like, hey, how do we establish this? And what do we do to build this brand in the channel and really get some credibility? And the reality is when I took the role, I had some concerns, based on just history and, if you look at the category and the players there. But the one thing I was extremely certain of was that this was a hell of a good product. And I had always thought it was a great product. Some of the technologies we have, some of the things that they use, the in the ground, on the ground, underwater type of technology is really unique. So to me, the big challenge, right, the big opportunity was, hey, we've got something good here. This is a great opportunity to build something up. And I think the other intriguing thing was that APG has a phenomenal platform. We're part of CRH, we're the largest building material manufacturer in the world. And that's what gave me the comfort to really move into this role and take the challenge on to build this out. And when we did that in 2019, I think I started in October. COVID hit early 20, right? And it was kind of an oh crap moment of like, yep. I remember turning and looking at my wife and going, hey, I think I ruined my career. Just want to let you know ahead of time, right? But the interesting thing was, like, we still had the belief, myself and Ken O'Neill still had the belief that we had an absolutely phenomenal product, and APG gave us the resources to build it out. And how we built it out, Todd, really over the past 5 years is, I think, again, we lead with technology. I think we lead with innovation, which is really unique. We're definitively not a Me Too product. If anything, we're starting to see some other brands pick up on some things that we've done, some of the larger brands, right? And then B, we built it out through the pro channel. And I think that that's an extremely important part of our story, because both the pro dealer, the pro two-step distributor, and then the pro installer has been the most important part of our story, because those are the people that can really make a difference in the field from a conversion perspective. And that's really what we've targeted when we've gone after building the business.
I would have really loved to be a fly on the wall, and maybe you could take us behind the scenes to back when you first started. You have the support of CRH, big company, lots of money. You believe in the product. I'm sure everyone in the room believes in the product at that time. How do you put a plan like that together? What kind of resources are you asking for? What kind of vision do you require to get there? I think a lot of our listeners, our thousands of listeners out there, some are going to be starting a company, have new products, maybe part of larger organizations like CRH, and wanting to learn how to grow a product. Just tell us a little bit more of like what happened in that room, what kind of plans were put together, what kind of visions, who was part of that?
Yeah, great question. At the time, It was myself, obviously Ken O'Neill, who you guys know, who's the president of Barrett, the fence decking and railing division of Old Castle. And then there was another gentleman who was the GM of the business at the time. And it was really kind of just the three of us, to be honest with you. And Molly Warner, who's our director of marketing as well, was involved early too. But big picture, I think the one benefit we had that someone starting off brand new might not have is resources, right? So we said, hey, we're going to do a kick-ass marketing campaign. If you guys remember the Shark Lady campaign, right? Really different. Like everyone remembers Shark Lady because every other product you see in building materials is like a lifestyle picture of an outdoor scene of a house, right? And we were doing something totally different. And that made a difference, right? It was really unique from a brand and a marketing campaign strategy. And then the other thing too is that I put together a plan, presented it to Ken on what we wanted to do to build out the brand to begin to get a national footprint, which we did not have at the time. And they really stood behind that plan. The company has been really good when you put together a good business plan and they believe in it and they believe in you, they'll give you resources. So we were hiring reps in markets that we didn't even have distribution in. So we went out and just really started to create demand by marketing, by generating leads, and then just talking about the product. And I would tell you the cart before the horse actually worked really well for us. We created that demand, which in turn gave us the ability to get some of that distribution and some of those dealers that we didn't have.
You mentioned something earlier about decking being a Me Too product, and that certainly feels like the industry. It's my perception that if you look at a lot of these decking manufacturers, they say, I can do that, or I have the brown, or I have the gray. Can you talk a little bit about why MoistureShield went to market the way it did, and kind of just for the people that might not know MoistureShield as well as they should, like what makes it special?
Yeah, absolutely, Todd. That's great. I think I kind of alluded to it before. When you look at how we manufacture the product and kind of our secret cake batter, right? Let's be honest, a lot of the extrusion is really similar from product to product to product, but how we manufacture specifically for a wood plastic composite product allows us to have a warranty that has, in the ground, on the ground, or underwater contact, which really no one else in the industry in a WPC product has. So that's really one thing we played on. Also at the time, from 17 to 19, they had been developing the cool deck technology. And you see a few things coming out now that are trying to emulate that. But what's really unique about the cool deck technology when you think about MoistureShield is that we actually, we put a stamp on it. We actually have an internal criteria for that something has to meet from a heat reflectivity standpoint to be called cool deck. So we've really, hooked on to that. Some of our entry level products don't have that. And we really feel that, hey, entry level is entry level. You don't need to put a technology that costs money or really candidly, like we're all in business, hurts margin, right? Into an entry level product, right? We're trying to keep it to the premium type product and it's done us really well. And again, I think when you look at some testing that we've done and we will continue to do with some of the new products coming out, we put our name on that technology. We put our name on that cool deck. We don't have an asterisk at the bottom of our page. We stand behind the number that, hey, it's really going to be cool if you walk across it, right? So we've really played into that and we'll continue to too. I think our calling card will continue to be that our technology is real and it works and it's going to continue to outpace other folks. Then I think just kind of the third thing is that when you look at our R&D and product development, for instance, Stratus that we just launched, right? 24-inch on center, WPC, PVC, composite kind of hybrid board. It's really unique. No one else is doing that. Everyone else is just kind of like, hey, I've got 7 new colors and a new edge groove, and I'm doing a 7 1/4 board. Hey, that's really cool. But we actually have really game-changing technology. We were out at a job site last week. Guys are picking up Stratus boards 16 feet long, 2 on their shoulder, walking them. They're not bending at all whatsoever. And the guys are totally lifting them with no issue whatsoever because of the lack of weight. So that's the innovation that we're really kind of keying in on and that we feel is important to differentiate us.
That's cool. If you don't mind, Todd.
Oh, I don't. So I do have a question though.
Yeah, go for it.
So 2020 hits. You're telling your wife this might not have been a good idea.
Yeah.
You realize that the pandemic is now going to be probably the best thing that's ever hit the decking world because of the forceful nature of wanting to just increase your backyard as an extra room in your house.
That's right.
And you have also successfully acquired almost national distribution at this point. So not only are you big organically, you're big inorganically. Can you talk about what that struggle looked like and kind of how you went to market with those challenges?
I'll clarify the timeline. For us, it was pandemic hit. We were having conversations about expanding distribution, but hadn't closed those deals yet. So it was a lot of phone calls, I think every single morning at 7:30 from Ken O'Neill saying, hey, have you got any POs yet? Until after like 60 days, we go, people aren't placing POs right now, Ken, to yes, the switch flipped, the faucet kind of opened, to your point, extremely quickly, right? And it was like, holy crap, like, how do you supply? We've got these distribution deals, we've got some presence, we've got some people that want our product. How do you make this so fast to keep up with that demand, right? And the one thing I'll say is, again, I kind of go back to the Old Castle APG and CRH resources, is that, again, cart before the horse, they invested in capacity knowing that the game plan was to build the brand, right? You can't have a decking plant with 2 lines in and expect you're going to have national distribution. They had gone ahead and invested CapEx to the tune, quite frankly, of tens of millions of dollars ahead of the game to position us really well to be able to grow the business. We were just really lucky in some respect. There was a luck aspect to this too, that we had invested those dollars. We had confidence in our plan and the product that we were going to build it. And the demand just came really quickly, right? And to the point, it was like, hey, we had enough. It was like, oh, you're in allocation. But we didn't really go into an allocation mode, right away. That took longer for us until the point that it was like, hey, you can't get extruders fast enough to be able to keep up with the pace of demand. But we did really well heading into it. And, I think it's been a really good learning process for me personally, when you look at the addition of capacity and how you leverage that with how you budget and how you expect to grow. And it's always a big dance with that when you look at investment, but I think we've done a really good job of it. I know we've probably put you guys in a bind on more than one occasion from a supply standpoint, right? But I think that those days are behind us and we're in really good shape, and we're continuing to invest too.
Full disclosure to our listeners, we are a supplier of MoistureShield. One of the reasons we are here today with Matt, and we of course during COVID had massive acceleration in our sales, just like Matt was saying for his company. Matt, can you talk about, just, you've been in the industry in different positions, different types of companies, lumberyards, your family business, what COVID was like compared to the past 20 years?
Yeah, it was
different?
Crazy, yeah. Right? Absolutely crazy. So I went through kind of the downturn, in the thousands and whatnot and all that fun stuff. But it was absolutely nuts. And I would tell you, I think my biggest takeaway from COVID wasn't so much the fact that just like, hey, you could grow your business so quickly. I think my takeaway from COVID is the downside of COVID, not like the upside. We all grew, we all made money. You just had to open your door. I actually think that's a really bad thing, because I think we got lazy as an industry because of COVID, right? I think that we had a lot of new people coming in. We're trying to fill holes. And again, this is as an industry, not specific to our business. But an overall whole, I think new people came into the business and we were just like throwing bodies. That's all of us, right? Throwing bodies at like, hey, can you answer a phone?
Every segment, not just decking, to your point. Yeah. 100%.
That's right. Yeah. Especially in some outdoor living categories. Right. And, I think we balanced it well with coming out with new products still and developing product, not just adding capacity. Like, that was an important thing for us. But my big takeaway was like, hey, the importance of making sure you train people, and that coming out of COVID, you've got the right team and the right people in the right holes. But it was an absolutely crazy ride, that's for sure.
So one last follow-up question on like the build. So you pass COVID, and then you do a very Old Castle-y thing. You acquire. And you buy a railing company, and it really catapults your position in the marketplace. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what that was like, and now kind of what that means for the company?
Absolutely. I think the acquisition of Barrett Outdoor Living, that was about 2 years ago. I think it was June. I think we closed June or July 2022. So we're just past 2 years at this point. I think third largest acquisition in the history of CRH. It was about around plus or minus $2 billion acquisition. And it's a big business. It's 2,000 plus or minus 2,000 employees, right? Big business, big position, and pretty diverse. Largest fence manufacturing company in the nation, pretty significant position in the railing world as well, and then a pretty significant retail position too, which is important to Old Castle APG and our retail relationships as well. But big picture, great acquisition, same thing. I'll never forget that. I got a phone call, I think, from Ken Thursday at like 8 p.m. Like, hey, there's going to be an announcement coming out. We're closing on a deal. What's the deal? Told me the deal. And then it was just like, boom, fast forward, kind of integrate. But I think from a positioning standpoint, Todd, what we felt was, hey, we have the decking's growing. We went from a nobody to a somebody. I think that we get mentioned in our competitors' earning reports now, right? Which is kind of interesting. It's kind of fun to become relevant, right? But I think we also stepped back and said, hey, when you look at relevance, you have to have scale. We have scale as an overall business with CRH and Old Castle, right? But within our category, we were kind of outliers because so many products within CRH and Old Castle are cementatious or aggregate. So we were really kind of a standalone business unit, and adding the railing and fencing and other products, the outdoor living accessories, it fits our portfolio, right? It's a really good fit. And then B, when I look at RDI specifically as a brand, RDI is a really unique, really cool railing brand that has some pretty innovative stuff. And I think, again, the biggest thing for us with Barrette was the innovation piece fits, right? It goes with the story that we're building out with MoistureShield, and then the people. And I would tell you from an integration perspective, the Barrette family and the Old Castle family, it's been relatively seamless overall. For a larger scale business to bring it in, it's been really seamless, but it's given us the ability, because of the manufacturing side, hey, MoistureShield is now a decking and railing business, right? And we've got a full line offering in MoistureShield and railing. We've got a multi-brand strategy, which is somewhat unique in the market. And I think it's been just a really good addition overall. And I think when you look at our longer term, goal, like we want to build out the business and not necessarily, obviously we want to take share and grow, right? That's our goal. But are there opportunities for other products? Like when we plugged in Barrette, are there other things that we can plug into our portfolio that don't necessarily have to be decking or railing? So I think that kind of set the stage for a bigger long-term strategy.
That's great. Yeah, from the outside looking in, very impressive. And we also obviously have lots of inside information too about working together. But it's been great to see this growth. Really cool to see. A great story. So you have the plan. You start executing the plan. In order to execute the plan, you need great people, great leaders, right? You being one of them. Can you talk about your leadership philosophy, your leadership style, how you built a team around you and around Ken?
Yeah, that's great. Good question. And from an integration standpoint, I'll kind of, because you just kind of alluded to that, like there was a large team at APG that did this integration. And I would tell you that there's dozens of people that were involved in the integration. Ken O'Neill, Carl Cockey, a bunch of people that you guys haven't even met before, but it was extremely well executed. But kind of going back to like my leadership style and how you build a team, I think a few things, like you have to decide what you want your culture to be, right? And the type of people that you want to fit the culture. And I think in my prior roles, I've really kind of keyed in on like, hey, we're going to be high performance, high expectation, but high reward, right? I think that's extremely important when you look at how you build your team. I kind of pride myself when you look at the people that we put in the positions around us, that I set the bar high for myself first. That's really kind of the first thing about the strategy is, hey, if you can't set high expectations of your people if you don't have expectations of yourself. So my bar is very, very high. And my expectations, like, hey, if they come really close to that, I'll be really thrilled, right? Because no one should be outworking me at the end of the day. So you want to get good people around you that are willing to work and work hard. And I think the other thing too is like when we look at our team and we build out that culture in the team, I always feel like, hey, we shouldn't be thinking about letting people go, right? Or what we have to do to make them better. I feel like if you have a really clearly defined culture, people weed themselves out. After 3, 6 months, people are going, hey man, I do not fit here. This is not for me. I don't want to work this hard, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. Right. So I think that that's worked pretty well on our team. I think we've got a phenomenal team in the field. It's a pretty big team at this point from a national footprint perspective, US and Canada. And then if you look at the other channel marketing and national accounts functions and whatnot, it's a pretty big team, but great people. And then I think the last thing is really empower your people. One of the things I challenge my team all the time is, if I get a phone call, hey, we've got this opportunity, or what do you think? I kind of flip it back and go, what do you think? When you have all the details, right? Get all the details. Todd, you probably know this, right? We talk about this stuff sometimes, like hit me up with all the details and then we'll talk. And then also bring a few options. Like, I want people on my team that are going to be creative, that aren't just looking for me to give them the answer. I want them to be creative and come with answers to me, or, hey, let's talk through this and build out an answer together. But challenging the team every day to be creative and kind of do their own thing and empower them to make decisions is extremely important to me. And I think as we've grown, when I look at my regionals, for instance, I'm really proud of the team that I have around me. They've done a phenomenal job. I can think of a couple of standouts. Brianne Papa just got an award or got recognized in HBS, right? So she's done a great job. That's someone who's really come into their role well, and that's just one of 8 regionals, and they're all great, by the way. So, but it's been a great ride, and also kind of promoting some people that didn't have that type of management experience into those types of roles. I think hiring from within is a really good thing, right? And empowering those people to grow and be there for them.
So you have a really big company, and I know just from Sherwood's perspective, just getting your vision across to a relatively smaller company is difficult. When you're the size that you are, and you have the team the size of what you do, how do you get them to buy into what the overall goal is? Because you have so many conflicting interests, you're acquiring companies at the same time, and all of a sudden you find yourself with a big pile of employees all trying to march in one direction. What does that look like?
Well, it's been good because it wasn't all at once, right? The Barrett acquisition was actually, though, that was a little big chunk to kind of take it once. Again, I just think if you have a clearly defined culture, people just figure out if they fit in or not real quickly. And I think when we did the Barrett acquisition, there was a fair amount of change, more for the people at Barrett than there were the people that were already at Old Castle. But I think that our culture is so clearly defined that they just kind of understood it really quickly. And we also, again, we did a really good job from an integration standpoint, I'd say, with that acquisition in particular. We did, on the day that we closed on the deal, I think there are 12 BOL, what we call BOL locations, manufacturing plants. We had multiple people from Old Castle on every single site to do a welcome the day of the closing. And we did a webcast with Ken O'Neill and Tim Ortman, who's the president of Old Castle APG. Did a webcast to the entire 2,000 person organization and welcome them to the team. And I think, again, like, creating a culture where people feel welcome and they feel that they're empowered and they can speak is extremely important. And that's a big part of kind of, as you build a team, making people feel part of it. Not that, hey, we're forcing our culture down your throat, but you're welcome in our culture. And by the way, we've taken some things from Barrett and changed some things in Old Castle because of it too, right? You have to say, like, hey, you can't just go in and say everything about our culture is so good that, it's the best ever. We've really embraced some things, and there are some great things that we've taken from Barrett and integrated into our culture from a training perspective, from an HR perspective, just like how we treat employees and do things differently that make us a better company. So melding those two things together has been great as well.
I'm particularly fascinated by culture and building cultures. And at Sherwood, we work really hard. Like, it's like an everyday thing. You can never let go, and you can never take it for granted what the culture is. It takes years to build and like one day to lose it. I'm just interested. I'm interested from your perspective of how it gets built, who's focused on it in your organization, how it's being kind of similar to what Todd was asking, and how it's being communicated on a regular basis. How has that happened?
Well, first, you guys have a phenomenal culture. Since I've met you,
Well, that's very nice. Thank you.
No, I mean that you and your family and and your leadership team has done a great job. I think, very unique. Obviously, I've spent some time with you guys and got to see what you do, but I think how you communicate and what you put across to your team is done very well, and that's one of the reasons we enjoy having you guys as a partner. So kudos to you for that. But on our side, one of your questions was, who puts that forth? Everyone puts it forth, Mike. Like that's everyone puts it forth. And that's part of building that culture, is that if everyone is not putting it forth, then you're not going to be successful at it. And that goes to having the right people in the right seats and having clearly defined roles and who does what to who. But, I would tell you, top down, Ken is really driving that culture. Our HR team does a phenomenal job of really kind of getting out to the team and reaching out and making sure the culture is out there. But APG overall, there's no question in anyone's mind, the things that are important to us as a company. And we're getting on the weekly, on the monthly, on the quarterly updates from senior leadership across the entire business, not just to, I think what happens in a lot of companies is that message goes to a certain level and it doesn't filter down, right? But we're doing town halls. Ken just did a fireside chat. I think it was the day before yesterday, maybe Monday. I don't know what day of the week it is yet. It's Monday. Ken did a fireside chat, to talk about our business to the to the 10,000 employees of Old Castle APG, right? Wow. So that they know more about what we do. So that consistency comes top down, and everyone has to be on the same page to really kind of relay that message to the team, and then take feedback from them on like, hey, what's not working? What do you think is BS, and what do we need to change to really make you feel like you're part of this?
And I'll say kudos, because it would be easy for Old Castle to have the big corporate kind of look and feel. But you talk to their employees, and a lot of them would tell you that they still have that like kind of human touch, right? And so they're a big company operating as a small company, so they have the benefits of scale and the benefits of culture. I think that's been one of their kind of secret sauces to recipe to their growth. If you just look at this company, they've grown from multiples over the last couple of years, and their employees still feel as if they matter and they have direct line of sight to their leadership. So kudos to you, kudos to the leadership team. I think that's kind of a really nice if I can pay you guys a compliment, it's something that I certainly noticed in the field.
The fireside chats are something we could steal. We could use that.
So we'll talk.
They're great. They're really good. Like it was a phenomenal it was a great presentation. Happy to share it with you guys so you can take a look at like what we do and how we do it. But it's really good. Like you get to know some of the senior leadership. I think the other thing, Todd, you just kind of alluded to, is that it is a big company made up of smaller businesses. They're bigger, smaller businesses, but they're smaller than the whole, right? And I think what's unique too is that Old Castle's grown a lot by acquisition. A lot of the people that they have acquired are still working in the business. For instance, Ken was he owned a block business in New Jersey that was acquired 20 years ago. And he's a 20-year employee of Old Castle. Now he's running, a pretty large P&L of a business that really has nothing to do with what the business was that was acquired, right? So pretty unique.
So just one more question on culture. You mentioned a couple of the things, but if you could think about from your perspective, what are the top 3 things the company does or you do as part of building culture that have big impact? That you could give to our listeners.
Understand, we're going to probably steal all 3.
Yeah, all 3. Yeah,
that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Again, I think clearly defined, right? So I always tell 2 people that there's 2 words that I feel define our culture. So you asked for 3. I'll start with 2 and see if I can come up with a good third one, just for the sake of it, right? But I think one, we're a large publicly traded company that is in manufacturing, and safety is the number one thing that comes to mind. We start every single meeting with a safety briefing. That is non-negotiable. 1,000%, 100% of every single meeting starts. That's a culture thing. That is part of our DNA. That is what we do. So I think that consistency of that culture and being safety minded, making sure that our people go home the same condition that they came to work in, is very, very important. And I think that puts the emphasis on the employee being such a big part of what we do. And then the second word I always tell everyone, is win, right? And win can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think just saying the word win, like when you hear win, you're like, okay, I get it, right? Win. But it's win in the aspect of like, hey, yes, we have a goal we want to hit. Hey, we have a budget number we want to hit. Hey, there's a deal we want to close that we want to get. But winning can mean failure too, right? So empowering your team to make decisions and take chances, and say, hey, all right, you worked really hard to get that. Didn't get this one, but your strategy was good. You had the right game plan. You just can't win them all. And saying, all right, let's get after the next one, right? That's a big part of winning too. And I think as a company, we do a really good job of doing that. I think it's unique from the perspective. I guess this will be my third-ish one. How about that, Mike? I think what's unique too is like we just don't have a lot of red tape. I think we're empowered to make the decisions on a daily basis really well. Where I like to explain it as kind of like the Brett Favre, I guess that ages me a little bit from a football analogy perspective, but from the Brett Favre perspective, like we get to, hey, you get to run outside the pocket and maybe throw the sidearm, and if you get it 75% of the time and that's your win, that's great. But be unique, try something different. Don't just do the 3-step drop and toss it, right? Be creative. And I think that that's part of that winning culture too, is just like being creative and doing things different than everyone else is.
Daniel Jones fans all over the country are rolling in their graves right now.
A lot of memes on that.
I'm a Giants fan. Todd's a kind of Bears fan.
Yeah, well, not anymore. I stopped caring about the Bears, and Jay Cutler stopped caring about the Bears.
Nice.
And Matt, what's your team?
I'm a Pats fan.
Pats.
So, New Englander at heart. So,
all right.
They look good. I think a lot of people lost their guillotine leagues just off of beating Cincinnati.
Hey, yeah, we got one of our projected 4 wins in week 1, so we'll take it. So,
I got one final question. I think we'll do some segment stuff.
Yeah.
So Matt, talk to me. Where is decking headed? What if you're a decking manufacturer? What are you worried about, and what are you trying to get ahead of?
Yeah, that's great. I think it's a unique category, right? There's a lot of really big players in the space, and I think you're starting to see some of the smaller guys kind of to fall away, especially when we're coming out of COVID. And I think the other thing too is like as you see consolidation and distribution at the dealer level, right? Like you don't need 25 different brands of decking, right? So I think kind of the cream's rising to the top when it comes to decking. And from a creativity perspective, where do I think decking's going? Again, like we like to lead with innovation and technology. Again, Stratos is a fine example of that. I think from where we sit, decking is going to a place where we're just continuing to innovate, right? We've got other projects in our R&D and our product development lifecycle right now. We're looking to innovate and make it better. How can we make it look more realistic? How can we make it perform better, span better, all those different types of things. So from an innovation perspective, I think that's where it's going. And what was the second question? Sorry.
What do you need to get ahead of? What's the next thing for Old Castle to stay kind of having a competitive edge?
Well, again, I would say that's more the life cycle thing in the product piece, Todd. I think we're in a good space in decking from a product perspective. It's what can we add to our portfolio that's really going to help, quite frankly, partners like you grow. I think it's not necessarily just about the decking piece, but what are the ancillary items that you guys can sell that can help you make a good margin and fill your trucks? Are there other products that can go along with that from a distribution perspective and help grow? I think that's really where our heads are at right now.
There's no debate that there's certainly some synergies of being able to kind of brand all of those parts and pieces as one total system too. I think the industry is certainly heading in that direction. There's no debate about that.
Also with the future, is there a runway, right? COVID definitely exposed the need for everyone to have backyard living spaces, to stay outside. Is that trend going to stay the same, going to grow, going to shrink? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, great question. I think if you look at collectively across of all building materials, right, we're kind of in an interesting place right now. You guys do some commodities too as well, obviously, just a few. And that business is not what it was, right? During COVID, the pricing has come back down to some sort of reality, right? We're probably never going to be pre-COVID. We're never going to probably be at COVID again. We're trying to find that happy medium from a cost of materials perspective, I think, on the commodity side. And then you're looking at, hey, new construction rates are starting to come off a little bit, right? But new construction is not what it could be. So commodities are pretty tough right now. So what's interesting is that, COVID hits. No one wants to go anywhere. They want to invest in their backyard because they want to stay home, right? And now it's like, hey, new construction is a little off. Home prices are still high. Rates are still not what people hope they should be, even though they're probably at some type of realistic level, if we're being honest with ourselves, right? But the large majority of people in the country have a significant amount of equity in their home, and they're not going to move because they're going to sell their house and really can't afford to buy something bigger or more expensive, right? So the upgrade's a pretty tough one right now. So what do? You stay home and reinvest in your backyard, right? So I think we're like in a unique spot where our category is, I don't want to call it bomb proof, but it definitely, I think, is. So we're 95% tied to R&R, only 5% new construction, right? So new construction, we're not super affected by new construction like commodities are. So what does that do? I mean, we're still going to see probably like 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7, 8% growth. I think the market's probably saying around 5% right now, but that's outpacing commodities. So if we see steady 5% growth over the next 5 years, right? And I think that you'll see it change after the election and whatnot. You can't ask me my endorsement question, by the way. But I think we'll see something change there. But if we see 5% growth and that's what the market gives you, and then our goal is to take some share, right, and continue to grow, and that's 8 or 10%. Like, hey, that's pretty good. Like, I think most people right now would be thrilled to grow 10% a year. By the way, like that's not our expectation. Like we want to do more, right? Because we want to win. That's our culture. But I think overall that puts the category in a good place, and you'll continue to see that. I think the other thing too to keep in mind is that the non-wood decking segment continues to take share from the wood decking segment, right? That is a real thing. There's a long conversion runway from wood to composite. And as you continue to see products or pricing vary on the wood side up, right? And composite has new technologies that maybe take some cost out, and you close that gap, that conversion is going to accelerate. And right now, wood's a drastically large 75+% of the market, right? So that gives you a lot of runway to convert from a volume perspective. So I think as technologies take cost out, make the products better, span better, last longer, look better, closer to wood, and wood, is going to see some upwards price movement at some point again, probably, right? That conversion will accelerate. And that's a good thing for all of us in this category. I don't want to steal from you wood decking just to sell composite, but I kind of do because that's the business I'm in, right? So
yeah. So I'm guilty as charged, by the way, because here I am. I have a house that I could probably sell for hundreds of $1,000s more than I bought it for.
Oh, yeah.
But to get a new house, I'd be paying 6 to 7 more percent.
Yep.
Right. Yep. I'm thinking about upgrading my home, right? So there's no debate about that.
We do pavers and outdoor kitchens too, Todd. I mean, just in case you're interested.
We're doing our backyard next year, so I'll certainly have that conversation. There's no debate about that. I'm going to ask you about your backyard here in a second too. So before the day is done. One last question on the comment that you made about composite versus wood. At what point, what's the tipping point where framing for decking moves to a composite versus what it is today? Because the selling point you're seeing some of these contractors start to do is saying, hey, I'm going to put a deck that's going to last 50 years, and I'm going to put a frame that lasts 10. What's the tipping point look like? What's that trigger point?
I think as an industry, like we know, right, that's the next thing.
Yeah.
It's there. Like I'm a true believer in an alternative to wood framing for your deck. Like all in. I think the big struggle with any new type of product in a category is cost is a big factor right now. There's a huge gap in cost from the wood frame to the alternative, whether it's steel, aluminum, composite. I mean, there's a ton of stuff out there, right? And then I think the other thing too that's extremely important is like, hey, how big of a gap is it to convert from one thing to the other, right? So when you look at product, and you know this from your past days in the siding world, right? Like when you look at traditional product and then you convert to something new, like if the install is drastically different, if you can't use the same tools, if you've got to retrain people in the field on how to do every single aspect of the install, like that's a really big jump to make. Yep. So I think as an industry trying to figure out like, hey, the cost side of it, like, there's things that you can do. That's certainly stuff we think about, right? The cost piece. And then the install piece, like what you want is something that's going to cut like wood, look like wood, install like wood, feel like wood, use the same hangers, right? All those things. So people are just not mega confused and it takes 4 times as long to put it in. So then you've got 5x cost, 3x install cost. Like it's not cost effective. Who cares if the thing rots in 15 years at that point, right? Like it's like the person who's paying for it's probably like, hey, I'm not going to be there anyway, right? Yep. But if you get that cost down to a relative level where it's a certain percentage, maybe even 2x more or even 3x candidly, but you can install it the same or faster. That's the type of innovation we have to find. But I'm a true believer that alternative framing categories got some legs. Someone's just got to figure out the right way to do it, and we'd love to be that person. So who knows? You never know.
Cool. What we'd like to do on our shows is have a little fun. And what we call this next segment is decking.
I'm having fun already.
I'm having fun. We're just getting into the fun now.
Oh boy!
You ready?
Here we go.
You pay for the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge of it.
Yeah, I might need to refill my coffee.
Yeah.
We're excited here. So.
This is called decking my dream.
Yeah.
All right.
Decking my dream.
Decking my dream. So no budget.
No budget.
Right? No budget. Tell me about your ideal backyard.
My ideal backyard. Okay.
Living space, no budget restrictions. What features you would have?
Oh, this is super easy, right? This is like an advertisement for free right now. So
yeah.
And so the beauty is like I get to be in gorgeous backyards all the time, right? And I think when you look at our portfolio, not just the products that I'm personally responsible for in our business, but our entire like the Old Castle APG and CRH portfolio. Like I was in one, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, right? Pebble Tech pool, gunite with Pebble Tech finish pool, which is a product that we manufacture from a pool finish perspective. Absolutely stunning, beautiful. Belgard pavers, maybe some Instadeck with some MoistureShield Stratos kind of inlaid. So you get some alternative kind of products mixed in up to a nice Stratos deck with some type of alternative framing that I would hope I would supply, but currently we don't. And then obviously outdoor kitchen, right? You want to have a nice outdoor kitchen, some Belgard's art forms, maybe with some Belgard's element kind of outdoor kitchen stuff. We were at a job site a couple of weeks ago. Like I think this thing had like 60 lineal feet of outdoor kitchen space, stainless steel appliances, like the Belgard art forms. Kind of, it's a really unique concrete type of outdoor kitchen. Instead of wood or anything like that, just stunningly beautiful, but like really kind of cool and industrial looking, but it looked really good. I think when you think about outdoor living space, like it's all about just bringing the inside out and vice versa, right? And just having that type of comfort. But people just want to be able to go outside and cook and have a refrigerator there and have a sink there and the whole shooting match without even having to go in the house to do anything. So it would be pretty awesome. It would be really expensive though. So no budget would be a big piece.
The backyard now, it's not even a backyard, it's like a vibe, right?
Yep,
so
right.
like and so he just gave a ringing endorsement for all of the products that they
That's
sell.
right.
By the way, if you're paying attention. And if you want most of those, go to ShareWoodLumber.com. So, Matt, I want to add this. We'll get some content for our socials here for a second.
Before you do that, as you're talking, I'm thinking about my ideal backyard.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, so there's a grotto involved.
A
grotto coming down.
Boy.
Made with some CRH product. Then that transitions into the lazy river, right? That goes around the entire backyard.
Got it. Yeah, I'm there with you.
There's definitely a cold plunge in there, so, but in the mornings, get your cold plunge.
Okay.
And with the sauna outside as well.
Nice.
So these are some of the features I was just thinking of that my ideal backyard that are not in my backyard right now. So,
I think you just did a new home, right? So we can really.
Yeah, I did a new home. I did a new backyard. I did not include these ideal things that I should have included.
Now you know.
There's always runway.
There's always runway.
Remodeling the backyard.
Exactly.
Right?
That's great. I'm not going to be able to beat anything Mikey just said. So, all right. You work for a big company. Whenever you work for a big company, it is, I guess, probable that there's going to be a lot of jargon. We want to know from you, quick hits. Is it a buzzword or is it? Does it mean something for you in real terms? Go ahead. Sustainability, jargon or real?
That's real.
Disruption.
Real.
Bandwidth.
midway. It's in between.
Okay, so give us the one. What's the one that if you hear it, it's an absolute like yuck? What are you guys doing here? Like we don't. That's not us.
Oh, you want me to give you an example of one that's not us? That's of what you just said.
Yeah.
Or?
What? Give me jargon.
You know what? This will be an interesting one. I might have some customers that get pissed off when I say this, but I guess that's what this is all about, right? I think partnership gets overused personally.
Yeah.
That's one that to me really gets overused because I think what happens is that we kind of integrate partnership or use partnership in the terms of like, hey, we do business together, and to me that's not partnership. That's just a buy sell agreement. I think you can have successful growth in business with people you do business with, that you have a buy sell agreement. When you do have a partnership, when you have that next level of information sharing, being on the same page about how you attack a market, having a shared strategy, that's partnership to me. But I think from industry wide, I think partnership kind of gets used a little bit too much, and I think that you have to really pick and choose and really work hard to build those partnerships and make it more than a buy sell agreement to me. So that would be my big standout.
Yeah, no disagreements here. What do you think?
It's very synergistic.
Yeah, I like what you did there. Yeah, well done. I'll liken it. Similarly, I think that relationship gets abused too. I can tell you from where I sit, I hear about the relationships that sometimes our guys have, but relationship doesn't mean that they like you; it means they buy from you as well, right? And so I feel like that gets thrown. While we're on topic of those types of words, I don't think you're going to piss anybody off. I think that's generally probably highly relatable. If I had a, yeah, you want to move over and just.
He doesn't want to address this one.
I'm
kidding.
So a little behind the scenes. You gave us a little behind the scenes earlier about making the decision to grow MoistureShield and how that came to be. Share a fun, surprising behind the scenes story from Old Castle, from MoistureShield, Barrett, wherever. Something that piques the everyday for our listeners.
An interesting story, huh?
So you're at the bar. You're talking with your employees. It's a story that gets shared around the like you talk about Campfire. That's like makes you that helps the team understand like the trials or tribulations
behind the scenes. Maybe a challenging time, maybe a positive time.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a bunch of those. Probably some I can't share in a podcast. A lot of them I can't share in a podcast. But I think for us, kind of alluding back to Todd earlier when you asked some questions about growing the business, I think when you do acquisitions, right, there's what you see from a diligence perspective, and then like what you got once you like paid the bill for the business, right? And I think kind of for us, some of the stuff we talk about that we reflect on often through the journey of growing the business out to the point we have has really been kind of the stuff that you didn't know when you got into it and that you learned as you went. Yeah. And there's a lot of those stories that Ken and I probably laugh about on a regular basis of what we kind of like, oh, geez, I didn't know that we had to deal with this today, right? And just how they sidetracked you along the way. And I would say whether it's like really bad deals that you inherited or really bad customers or really bad, who knows, products even that you inherited, that's the kind of stuff I think from like an inside perspective. Like I won't go into the specifics of them, but there's some really good ones. Maybe over drink sometime we can talk about. But those are the fun ones I think for us from like a learning experience. And I think just doing your diligence and making sure what you're acquiring or buying is really what you think it is, because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in that process for sure.
We would have experience knowing the good, the bad, and everything in between. I think
asking the right questions, right? Learning.
That's right.
All right, Matt, we have one last
very exciting answer, but that's what we got.
It's all right.
We got one last question for you. If there's anything that we haven't asked you so far that our listeners need to absolutely know about MoistureShield or Old Castle or RDI, what is it that they should take away? What should they know before we're leaving here today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Todd. And I would say like kind of one thing I feel like we didn't really touch a lot on because I appreciate you guys having me. And B, the questions are fantastic. But because you're asking a lot about us, like, there's a lot of like me spewing just literally about us. I think one thing that is important to us, and really kind of thinking about when we think about the business and the growth and hey, the strategy and all, we can have the best laid plan, but we can't do that without customers. We can't do that without people in the field that are willing to give us a try. So I think really, the one thing I'd like to touch on is just folks like yourself, like, hey, we've been doing business, I think 3 years ish, right at this point.
Yeah.
And it's been a hell of a ride. It's been great growth. It's been great building that relationship. We talked about the relationship word, but for us, like, I think the customer is extremely important. And that's something that we really critically think of on a daily basis. I think when we look at our team from the top down, that's the entire organization, CRH, Old Castle, Barrett. When we look at how people build relationships, Ken takes every Friday morning and does a breakfast with a customer, no matter where he is. That type of relationship building, like you guys, we can't do it without you guys. We can't do it without your team believing in us. So the biggest piece to us is really just that too, right? Like, again, best lead plan, best products in the world, yet no one to sell them to, then you're not going to get real far. So I think, to me, like, really relationship building and truly relationship building and getting to know the people you do business with and learning about them and where they live and what their families are like, and genuinely caring about them is important to us. And we do that at the distribution, the dealer, the contractor level, and across the board with our teams as well. So that's just kind of one thing that's real important to me that we didn't talk about.
And I'll reinforce it. We feel like we are winning with a product like MoistureShield, and we feel like you guys care about us winning, and that's a really nice feel good. So it just kind of reinforce your comments. We would certainly agree with that from our perspective.
For sure, we have the comfort, and I'm going to steal that Friday breakfast. That's another great one.
Two takeaways so far, right?
Thank you for all the partnership.
And it's genuine. So
it's genuine when we say it this time. It's not jargon. And thank you for joining us today on Shipped and Delivered. Yeah,
no, thanks for having me.
A wonderful podcast today with Matthew Bruce. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening. If you'd liked our content, please check us out on YouTube and social media. Plenty more content to come in the future. Keep an eye out. SherwoodLumber.com.
Next week, we speak with Steve Mosby, Vice President of Sales of Lansing Building Products. Here at Stockton Delivered, our goal is to talk to industry professionals across all spectrums of the value chain, bringing transparency to what they do, their journeys, and what it takes to be successful here in everything that we do between lumber, building products, logistics, and everything in between.